Okay, we love David. Are you kidding? That's my man. That's my man right there. Hello, hello, hello. I'm excited about today. Hello, Mr. Trevor Houston.
Good morning. Hello, hello. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Randy. How are you?
I am fine. I have survived another technology day of getting all of our ducks in a row for our 11 o'clock show. I used to have brown hair. It's no longer brown. It is now completely gray, as anyone on the stream can see.
Listen, we love every
as long
week
as it goes gray, it doesn't.
Another bar, another every week we give and make it a little bit more, a little bit more.
That's right.
Hey,
Well,
Randy, I have a line that goes like this: I don't care if it goes gray as long as it don't go away.
Well, yeah, I do still have hair, so I agree with that. I agree with that.
So, are we ready to have some fun? Are we ready to have some? Because you know that it's Trevor Fun Houston.
Hey, let's rock and let's roll. Amelia, I got something special for you. I just got to know if you're ready. Are you ready?
I am so ready. I am so ready.
Let's rock, let's roll, let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Trevor Houston, and welcome to the Genius Hour with your human behaviorist expert, Amilya Antonetti. And joining us today is our very special guest, Rich Specht, as we discuss a different kind of living legacy. Join us as we unlock the genius within and the keys to your own inner genius. Because when you live freely as your best self, you bring out the best in others. We rise together in our genius. And now your host, Amilya Antonetti.
I just need you to follow me around.
Let's go.
When I have one of those moments that I don't want to get out of bed and I'm like, no, there's no coffee yet. I just need to play that in my head as I ease into my day. There you go. I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you for all the Genius Key trainers that are on stage. We're going to do a big shout out. Tony, I love you. I love you. I love you. Miss Niku is here. Miss Sarah is here. Mariana is here. Carmelia is here. I'm scanning the stage. I'm scanning the stage. Whatever. Scanning. Miss Dora Marie. My eyesight is going. You guys may be losing your hair. I'm losing my eyesight. That's what I'm losing, is my eyesight. When I walk, can't see a thing. Not a damn thing. So, Randy, I am so excited today. I was reading your show notes, and I was falling in love. I'm like, oh, yes, this is a man after my own heart. So you want to do the introduction?
So, yeah. My first comment to Trevor for that opening and
Yes.
the theme music, I now don't feel like I am cool enough to be the Ed McMahon to your Johnny Carson. I think I have to tend to.
I don't feel cool enough. Okay, I have been down to Dallas into his studio. I have spent time with him, following around like a puppy, and I'm like, I'm just not too cool to be with this man. I am not cool enough.
Oh no! I feel totally like I'm just gonna log off and go. What is the point of having me here?
Oh my goodness.
I think it makes me feel when he's like the pro at the roadcaster and I'm just fumbling through it.
Listen, this is my first time multicasting and doing it with all the different components. I've used them all independently, right? I've used Restream, I've used the Roadcaster and Clubhouse all independently, but today is the first time we're putting it all together. So hopefully there's no technical issues throughout the day, but yeah, I appreciate you guys. We love you.
Oh, and Amelia, I was giving technological advice for the last 9 minutes going into this. There was nothing pretty about that. It was just painful. And in my head is Susan Bennett's Siri, telling me we hate technology. So I'm just glad we're here, and I'm thrilled that we have my merch.
Listen, it just gets better from here. Well, why don't you do the introduction, because we're going to have fun as we talk about legacy.
Well, it's more serious. I'm going to tell you, I'm really going to let Rich talk about himself, but I want to sort of paint a picture for where I was when we met. My friend, my very, very, very dear friend, Janet Rubo, who is in the audience today, had told me Rich's story. She is a follower of my work. She knows the type of people I talk to on my podcast. She knows that I like to talk to people who have a story that's meaningful, that can help somebody else, which is very true. So my husband was preparing to have surgery. I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital. So it's literally 1:00 and I'm at home, in the house, 1:00 going, what do I do with myself for the next couple hours? I can't be there. He's having surgery. He's going to be fine. But I just didn't like my situation. At 1:03, my phone rings. I'll never forget it. And it is Rich. And he introduces himself. Keep in mind, I don't even know what to do for the next couple hours. I don't know how to react to this scenario of the pressure of not being there during this procedure. And Rich says, I got your number from Janet. Do you remember? I said, oh, yeah, she mentioned you. He said, do you know my story? And I said, I know she introduced a concept to me, but I don't remember it specifically. And when Rich told me his story, my entire perspective on my life in that moment changed. And Rich, I'm going to let you tell the story.
All right, so I love that you started with that word perspective, and I'm a former science teacher, so that's some context that's important as to what we do and why I do what I do now. But my story starts on October 27th, 2012, which was 2 days before Superstorm Sandy hit Long Island, and I was getting ready for the storm, as basically the rest of Long Island was. And my job that day was to take care of our lawn furniture so that it didn't blow away. And my wife was going to take, at the time we had 3 children, my daughters Abigail and Lorelai, who were 7 and 5, and my son Richie, whose nickname is Reese. He's got my name, so he's not a junior. I was a junior. I didn't want him to be a third. So we gave him a hyphenated middle name because my wife and I couldn't agree on a middle name either. So his middle name was Edwin Amer, and his initials spelled out Reese. So his nickname was Reese Specht. And my wife was going to take the 3 kids shopping, and he was acting up, being a typical 22-month-old. And I said, leave him home with me. And she's like, okay, you can do both. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I wanted to be her hero. And she heads off shopping, and I immediately realized I couldn't do both. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Like when you make that offer to someone that you want to be nice, but not really. Like you figure they're never going to take you up on it. So I didn't expect her to actually be like, yep, you can keep them. So I'm sitting there with him. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And my best friend called me. And he said, Rich, I'm getting off of work early. I'm working in your neighborhood. Do you mind if I stop over? I'm like, absolutely. Come over. How quickly can you get here? And he said, in 5 minutes. So he gets there. And the first thing I asked him, I said, would you mind watching Reese while I, take care of the stuff I've got to do? And he's like, sure. And so I get all that furniture basically put away. I'm ready to pat myself on the back and, surprise my wife when she comes home, seeing that, everything is taken care of and my son is safe and sound. And I did everything I promised I would. And I see Reese playing in the driveway with a toy he wasn't supposed to have. And I got really upset at my friend for letting him have it. It was actually a collectible that was in his room that wasn't meant for him to play with, but my friend didn't know any better. I'd given it to him. I got upset. I took the toy away. I started accosting my friend and saying, it's not meant for a 22-month-old. I flipped the toy over. It says, look, underneath it says ages 3 and up. Joking has it. And I got really upset. I actually insulted my friend. My son's crying. I handed him the toy, and I'm like, I can't. This isn't right. My son's upset. My friend's upset. I'm not being the role model I'm supposed to be. I'm not being the friend I need to be. Just take it away. And I handed it to my friend. I closed the garage doors, and I gave myself 5 minutes to cool off. And I went back into the house after 5 minutes, and I went back right to my friend, and he was watching TV, and I said, I'm really sorry for what happened. And then it immediately struck me that Reese wasn't there. And I said, where's Reese? And he said the words that changed everything. I thought he was with you. And I'm like, no, I thought he was with you. And immediately the alarm bells in my head ran off. We had a pond in my backyard, and that was the first place I looked. And I'm going to be honest, when I first got up to the pond, I thought, everything's okay, because it was still. And there was no sign that, when you see drowning in the movies, there's a struggle and there's splashing, and the reality couldn't be any more different. And it's silent and it's quick. And I looked over and I found him there, and I pulled him out, and tried CPR, and I knew he was gone. And that was it. I mean, my life, like, as far as I knew, my life had ended right there. And then the next few days were a blur, except for the fact that Superstorm Sandy didn't care what had happened and came and basically devastated my hometown, all of Long Island. And we were without power for 2 weeks. I had no phone, no internet, no way to communicate with friends or family. No way to cook. There were these gas shortages. I had a generator, couldn't even get power to my generator. So it was darkness. That's the only way I can describe it. And we couldn't even have a funeral for Reese because all the funeral homes we reached out to told us that they couldn't help us because they had no power. And I was at my lowest that you could possibly be. I mean, I've always told people, when you lose a child, it's like having a piece of you ripped away. It's like having your heart ripped away. And there's no way to fix that. And so about a week after Reese had passed, I get a knock on my door, and it's a complete stranger. And I didn't know who he was, and I opened the door, and I see him standing there. He's wearing a shirt that says Kelly Brothers Landscaping. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to solicit me. I'm like, this is not the time. And before I even got a chance to say a word to him, he looks at me in the eye and he goes, Mr. Specht. And he said, yeah. And he said, I was working at your neighbor's house. He told me what happened to your little boy. I just had to come over and see what I could do to help. Which struck me because anyone else I had spoken to in this time, the universal refrain was, I'm sorry. And usually that's where it began and ended. This man never said the words, I'm sorry. He said, what can I do to help? And of course, now I don't know. I mean, and I remember saying to him, I don't need landscaping, thank you. And he looks at my yard. My yard was wrecked. We had 10 trees knocked down in my yard. And it was a ton of damage. So he looks at my yard and says, have you seen the yard? I mean, I can fix that. And I told him I don't have the money. I can't. And he would not take no for an answer. And I tried. Believe me, I tried. And he just started getting to work. And my wife had no idea what was going on. So she sees these workers out in the yard. She looks at me. She's like, what did you do? And I'm like, I told them no. I said no. And she's like, well, they're working. And I'm like, I don't know. You got to just let them work. And so they worked all through the night. Actually, that day, we had actually gotten a funeral home to finally to do a memorial service for Reese that night. And it was last minute, and I'm like, no one's going to show up. I don't even know what the point is. I mean, we're literally doing it last minute. And we get to the funeral home. It was like so many people showed up. So many people showed up that they had to actually have the police direct traffic on the road outside. And it was supposed to be a 2-hour thing stretched to 6 hours. And I remember leaving that night just overwhelmed, just in a fog, and remember walking outside and seeing all the darkness outside because the lights were still out everywhere, the power was out still everywhere. And I just remember this thought that I had, and you were talking about perspective, that when you don't appreciate the light in your life until it's taken away. And I saw that. I literally saw that, and I just remember like that world that I saw was a reflection of how I felt inside, the damage I saw. And I just remember pulling into my yard, driving home in this catatonic, state, and my lights lit up my yard, and it was like the storm would never come. And it didn't make sense. It was so incongruous to what I had felt, and it wasn't a blade of grass out of place. And it dawned on me it was Mr. Kelly. And I just looked at my yard and I started smiling. And I looked over at my wife and she was smiling. And this was like, no, there should not be a smile on my face. This isn't right. But there it was. And we both said we slept through that night. That was the first night we had slept through the night since Reese had died. And I woke up the next morning. I still didn't believe it. And I looked outside and I see my yard, and I contrasted. I saw my neighbor's yard, and I was like, ugh, I felt terrible how damn their yard looked in contrast to mine. And then there was a knock on my door again. It was Mr. Kelly. And he comes back. And now my heart's racing because I'm like, oh my God, he's going to hand me a bill. That was my first thought. And I run down there, I open the door, and I don't know what to expect. And I just hugged him, and I felt he started crying. And he goes, Mr. Specht, I couldn't help but noticing after I came to your yard, I noticed your landscaping is asymmetrical. And that was like landscaper speak to your landscaping sucks. I'm like, well, I'm a science teacher, not a landscaper. He's like, well, good news, I am. And I'm like, aha, there you go. It was a sales pitch. And he's like, no, I don't. It's like, this truck that's parked out here. My workers, they're all volunteering to come in today. This is their day off. And all the plants that you see in the back of that truck, that's all of our surplus stuff. I've got an idea to redesign your whole yard and really, just make your yard sing. He's like, please let me do it for you. I'm like, I don't have the money. I can't. It's too much. And he just wouldn't take no for an answer. And his workers got to work, and they basically, over the next 5 days, redesigned my whole yard. I remember like a day into it, he comes and he's like, what are you going to do with the pond? And I said, if I can fill it in by hand, I will. And he goes, you don't need to fill it in by hand. And a tractor comes in, and he's already got it ready to fill it all in. The universal thing, we couldn't pay him back. Everything I tried to do to pay him back, he wouldn't let me do. So my family and I finally decided, if we can't pay him back, what are we going to do? And on the last day he came, I asked him, I said, Mr. Kelly, why did you do this? And his one word answer was respect. And I lost it. And he didn't know my son's name. He didn't know any of that. And I just lost it. And I'm like, that's everything. And he would not let us pay him back. And I tried. I was like, can I at least put a sign in my yard or something? Nope. And because he wouldn't let us pay it back, my daughter and I sat at the table with my wife, and I said, what are we going to do? And my kids' university said that we'll just do random acts of kindness for other people. And
I'm going to jump in. Yeah. Amilya, my eyes, I can see hers. I've heard the story. We talked a lot. I'm so profoundly moved, but I don't want to go so quickly past the ages of your daughters at the time you had this discussion with them. How old were they when they lost their little brother?
They were 7 and 5.
And a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, an adult man, concocted the following plan. And now I'm going to ask you to go on, but it's the fact that they are 7 and 5 and how
and it was their plan.
Them, it blows me away.
Yeah, it was their plan. They said, Daddy, we'll just do acts. It was just totally natural to them. Daddy, we're going to do acts of kindness for other people.
7 and 5.
And then I asked how many, and my 5-year-old goes immediately 5 million. Because in her head, that was equivalent. And of course, as the adult, I immediately like, no, sweetie, you can't do 5 million acts of kindness. You don't even have that many seconds in a day. Like, sorry, you can't do it. In your lifetime, you don't have that. And she's like, no, 5 million. I'm like, sweetie, it needs to be something we can do in a year. So we decided on 500. And we were going to use what Mr. Kelly told us, respect. And what he did for us, he respected us. He respected our lives. So we're like, respect life. That's it. That's what it's all about. And we had these cards printed up that had a caricature of Reese dressed as Superman, because that's my last picture of him trying on his Halloween costume. And on the back, it just told the story why we were doing it. And we were going to do 500 and hope that other people might be inspired to do some their own kindness. But that wasn't really the goal. It was just to do this. And first place I went to the first day we had the cards was our local Dunkin' Donuts. My daughters were with me. I pull up at the Dunkin' Donuts and I pay for the car behind me, and I leave the card and I drive off. Much to my daughter's chagrin, they wanted me to like get out and interview this woman. Believe me. And I was like, no, we got to go, sweetie. And I drove off, and I'm like, all right, 1 down, 499 more to go. And then I get an email. Actually, a message on Facebook, because my Facebook information was on the original cards. And so she messaged me on Facebook and said, I just wanted to let you know, after you did that today, over 100 cars paid for each other. And I was like, she's like, it didn't stop until the last car pulled up and there was no one behind them. And so that last car pulled off and left with the card. She's like, everyone passed a card on. She's like, a couple of people tried to keep it, but I had suggested instead of keeping it, take a picture and pass it on. So they did. But then the craziest thing was a couple of those people did email me because they had the picture. So they had our contact info, and they had like, do you have any more of these cards? And I had ordered extra. I didn't expect that, I would need them, but I was like, yeah, I have some extra. I'll mail them out to you. And so I did. And then like 3 days later, I got an email from a lady in Connecticut. And she thanked me for buying her Starbucks that morning. And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, Long Island isn't far. It's 15 miles across the Sound, but I haven't been to Connecticut in like 25 years. So that wasn't me. And then I realized what it was, but then she did the same thing. She asked me for more cards. And then it just kept happening. And I would get these people contacting me, and I would send out the cards. I had no nothing built to do this. I was just responding, and one after the other. And then before we knew it, I had gone through, I think we had ordered initially, I had ordered 1,000 cards. And not that I needed them, but I think it was a deal on Vistaprint when I ordered them. But we had them, and I went through those 500 so quick that I had to order more, and it was like 10,000. And I'm just going to cut to the chase. I mean, here we are 9.5 years later, and we've now given out over 750,000. And on every continent on Earth, except for Antarctica. So that's the one place I haven't gotten to. I started keeping track. I kept track of where all these cards were going. I kept track of where people were sharing these stories with us, and it kind of just took on a life of its own. And I, throughout the whole process, realized that all it takes is just a little respect. And in that way, we've kept his name alive. We've kept his legacy alive. And my daughter, who was 5 at the time, who told me 5 million, has been very keen to point out to me. She said, "Dad, you put me down. You told me 5 million was impossible." She's like, "But I'm old enough to do the math. That first card got 100 acts of kindness. If 750,000 cards each got 100 acts of kindness, that's 75 million acts of kindness. I mean, you told me 5 million was impossible." And she's like, "And let's say it's even 10. That's 7.5 million. She's like, "So you need to tell me, you're sorry." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I was wrong. You nailed it." But talking about perspective, I mean, it made me think, like, the kids get it and I didn't, right? I said that's impossible because I was thinking of myself. And I think that's so poignant for what our story shows, is that it's not just us. I mean, we are all connected, and one man's choice to make a difference in our lives, a selfless choice that to this day, he will not let me. I mean, he gets upset anytime I even say his name publicly. It changed us. And I just want people to know that kindness that they think is so trivial, that they think is inconsequential, can make a huge difference. And
I think that's I really want to drive that home, right? You can make a difference in somebody's life, right? You absolutely can. And for some reason, our subconscious thinks that we need grand gestures, right? People stop and pause and don't because they think they need a grand gesture, without realizing that it is the small acts of kindness that have the strongest influence, right? And so, and I was here during Storm Sandy, right? You could not have ever painted that movie for me and me believe you. Like, Storm Sandy was the craziest thing I have ever been through, right? I mean, it was the whole everything. But what I will say, and again, for people who are not in the Long Island area, Storm Sandy, my car ended up 7 miles in a totally other direction. Like, the water came in, my car would literally, like, you go and go, oh my God, like, there's everything that should be in one place was miles and miles and miles away. The damage was incredible. Hundreds and hundreds of people lost their home. When I tell you that the water was at the second level of our house, that's what I'm telling you.
Right.
Like, where the balcony of the bedroom was is where the water was. It was insane. But what did happen? I'm going to cry. Neighbors came together. Strangers came together. Which were hours. I remember being in line for gas for 7 hours. 7 hours. And my son was so little, and I had to pee. Like, we were like, listen, can you watch the kids? I got to pee. Can you, like, because it was absolute unprepared chaos, and the kindness of people was like nothing you could ever imagine. And that's why I as a behaviorist say, don't ever underestimate the power of people. right? You saw it at 9/11, right? You saw it at 9/11. You saw it with your neighborhood, right? Because what you went through, there isn't anything more painful. It is the maximum of pain. I say losing your spouse and losing a child is paralyzing. And and to turn that pain into service that's filling people's hearts in these acts of it is beyond a legacy. It is. I don't know any greater God's work on this planet than what you're doing.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I said I wanted people to have that context to know that I was a science teacher. When we started this, I actually said to my daughters sitting at the table when they said that, I was like, "That's perfect, guys." I said, because how do you counter a negative? We counter negative with a positive, right? And I was like, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this negative in our life. We're down here, right? We're down in the dumps, and we wanna raise ourselves up. So we're gonna do that positive to do it. And I had actually, that night of Reese's memorial, I'd actually said it to all these people that had come. It just struck me because a lot of these people were some of the same people who on Facebook were making fun of each other and belittling each other for having different political views, because it was right around the time of the 2012 election. And I said, yeah, you guys are all here to help us. I said, what does that say about us? I mean, you recognize this negative thing in our lives, and you realize the power you had to help lift us up, which is what you're doing. I said, but I'm going to offer you another idea. Why do we seem to stop at neutral? Why is it that once we get to neutral, everyone's like, okay, now it's good? Because I can't help but think as a scientist and say, when you add a positive charge to something that's neutral, it now becomes positive. So I'm not going to stop at one thing. And we can't. We need to look at a way to say, listen, I as one person can make a positive change for someone else just because I can, not because I have to, or not because there's an obligation, or not because there's a cue that tells us this is what we're supposed to do. Let's move past that neutral and add. And that has been our goal ever since. And I think, you know, I know my daughters live by that now. They're 17 and 15. And it's that change for me has helped. I mean, you'll never fill that hole in, you don't. But that positive keeps me from sinking down. And, you know, I just want more people to understand that, to have that perspective that.
Well, and there's a deep, so you're a scientist, I'm a behaviorist, right? So my career has been in the behavior sciences and behavior organizational management, that kind of stuff. That's been my world. And there's something really, really fundamental here that I don't want to skip over when you use the word respect. You can't intentionally hurt something you respect. When we talk about building our communities, building our families, building our relationships, respect is the gateway. If we want to remove hate from our communities, then we must teach people how to respect one another.
Right.
I didn't say agree, because agreeing is irrelevant. Respect is what's going to stop the hurt and the hate. And it's not an Ameliaism, right? It's a fact. It's right. You cannot hurt something that you respect. Now, you can unintentionally, hurt somebody's feelings and things like that. But when you talk about mass destruction, you're talking about one part of our communities to another. Well, if you teach respect, which is taught, respect is taught. We're not born respecting each other.
No.
It's a taught skill. It's a life skill. Then you start to move away from hate and end up to neutral, which then allows you then to love. You must first respect, and then you can love. You can't hop to love. You've got to respect first. And so the fact that you've identified that word specifically in the mass amount of service that you're doing, you're inherently are teaching people the gateway to love.
I didn't discover that word. It was brought to me. I mean, it just, Mr. Kelly, why'd you do this? Respect. And I was like, okay, there you go. I mean, there's got to be more to this.
Which sounds like the old generation to me, right? The old generation, when people talk about, how the Italians live next to the Irish, that live next to the Jewish community, that live back to the African American, we all lived in these little kind of boroughs. but side by side, which was within the community, we had respect, but then we had to have community with the adjacent community, right? And so, and again, for people who don't live in New York, you can be one street over from an entirely different community. Like you literally can go one street and go, whoa, where am I now? Right? You're in like the Twilight Zone, right? Because the communities are so tight and so dense, but the communities live inside the other communities. And there is a sense of respect between the communities, right? That the older generation bred, right? And there's good and bad and everything, but it is the older generation that is so committed and rooted to respect. Like I will tell you, I'm an off the boat Italian family, and my father ruled with a roost, right? With a iron fist, because you were going to respect him. There wasn't, you didn't get to vote on the respect in my house. He demanded it. Right. And the pride, the work ethic came from respect, right? So Mr. Kelly sounds like an older gentleman who lived in a generation where respect was one of his core values.
And by the way, if I can just jump in here for a second and say, by the way, thank you, Rich, for how you're showing up in the world. And Randy was just on the message, just reminding everyone that Reese is your son, and that's the name of your organization. So we'll just press on that. But I wanted to say something right along the lines of respect, you know, when you were talking about that, I just heard this tune in my head that goes, one man can change the world. One man can change the world. And you, my friend, are changing the world. And yet Mr. Kelly perhaps was the man that really changed the world, because he was the catalyst for this kindness that you saw through respect, that he was your catalyst. He was the ignition. He was that spark that lit your fire, that you're now going out to change the world. And for every person that you help, and I've got the chills right now as I'm saying this, for every person that you help, you are changing the world for that person. And that person may go on to do something so much bigger than you, so much bigger. What you're doing is already huge, but you may be inspiring the next generation, your daughters, or perhaps that woman from Starbucks, or whatever. It's a chain reaction. I remember when people started paying for the person's coffee behind them, and there was one time that I heard that, you know, it went for like 3 hours at a Starbucks, people paying for the order of the person behind them. And I'm telling you, that could save someone's life. One random act of kindness can save someone's life. And if you can save someone's life, by the way, you can change generations. There's thousands of people that may come because that one person didn't give up and quit because of one random act of kindness. So I just want to salute you and say thank you for what you do, because one man or woman can change the world.
I know we're all like dying to say, let me say, Rich Specht changed the world. Let's give credit. Yes. Rich and his daughters, they did that for him. This little boy, Rich, changed the world. And to me, I don't think there's anything more important. Keep in mind, Rich and his wife are living in one of the most expensive markets in the country. They're both teachers. They're both teachers in one of the most expensive markets. Rich, what you don't know about the story is that he no longer teaches. He gave up that career. This is what he does now. He goes around and speaks on behalf of this kindness community, on behalf of respect, on behalf of doing kind things. This is what he does. And we've already put the link to his organization for Clubhouse up in the top. I'm going to get on my high horse. I'm doing my first commercial right now, Amelia. It will be followed by a second commercial. What? This group cares. This group cares about people. This group takes action. We've seen it. We've seen it. We've seen it. Please write him. Get those cards. This man deserves our respect and our support. The news cycle is so fast that something can be come and gone in 2 weeks. Well, it's been 10 years, but I'm sure he still misses that child and still wants to honor that child. And we need to do what we can do to help him do that.
Well, I got something to say.
And I'm just begging all of us to get involved and help and to push this forward. It's so important. I am off my soapbox. Back to you, Amir.
Well, I got something to say real quick about respect. You know what I'm saying? I got to play this real quick for you. All right, this is for you. Hope you enjoyed that.
We have sound bites, Amelia. We have sound bites now.
He's teaching. and he's teaching me how to do it. And again, I just want to press on. Reese did change the world in his young life. He came here for the amount of time that he was here that showed you so much love, and you showed him so much love. And this is what his mission was, to spark that in you, for you to go out and be the catalyst. He was the catalyst, right? And then Mr. Kelly reminded you, and then everything happens for a reason. Life is happening for us. And I know that's so difficult and painful to understand when we're going through difficult moments. Yet this is his legacy, right? And now this is your legacy. So again, much respect for you and for your son and Mr. Kelly and your daughters and everyone whose lives you're impacting. So
it's the domino effect. It's a domino effect. I love it.
Well, I got one other thing I'd like to say about the whole pay it forward thing is that like people don't really understand how quickly this thing can start to make an impact, right? So if you just take 3 acts of kindness and you help 3 people, and those 3 people help 3 people, those 3 people help 3 people, right? And only 3, and you do that just 12 times. Just 12 times. I'm not talking 100 times, just 12 times you can impact over 1.5 million people, right? That's how quickly it compounds. And so, yeah, I believe in that. And I think that let's push this message out there. Let's make a bigger impact. And I think we got a room right now. Go ahead.
Trevor, you're really saying 3. You're talking about 3 times a month.
Yeah.
If once a week, somebody did a random act of kindness, you are building a legacy that's going to impact over 1 million people. It's so simple.
So simple.
So within our right, and we don't do it. We put our heads down. We've got our heads in our phone. We bump into people because we're not even paying attention, and don't even have the ability to stop for a moment to be present to do a random act of kindness. And it's those things that I'm telling you that when you pour and serve into the world turns around and pours back to you. And I love that type of math because I'm such a math girl. It's once a week.
And everybody thinks
once a week.
Everybody thinks that it has to be something big, right? It has to be this big old large grand scheme. No, it doesn't have to be something big. It could literally be something as simple as hitting that share button, right? Like if we could get the message out, right? Literally right now, like everybody should just hit that share button so we can get this message out there, right? But that could be your one act of kindness for today, right? Like it's just one little small thing, but it's just going to get reach and impact. Let's get this message out to more and more people.
Say small hinges. It's something to remember. Small hinges swing big doors. Small hinges swing big doors. A couple of little random acts of kindness can change the world.
Mic drop for you, Tony.
No, I have one more. And this is one that I love. This is just a quote. By the way, this is just a quote, and this is by Sai Baba. And the quote is, "Hands that serve are holier than lips that pray." I'm gonna say that one again. Hands that serve are holier than lips that pray. Because prayers important, don't get me wrong, but those prayers need to land on the ears of those who are willing to take up to pick up their hands and serve. And you, my friend Rich, you are serving. So hands that serve, holier than lips that pray. Appreciate
you. Really. That's a mic drop. Here, I'm gonna give you a round of applause for that one. Woo! Let's go. Mic drop.
Well, see, and I want to add, because basically what you described was actions speak louder than words. And of course, the scientist in me then has to look at and say, well, then I know that actions have reactions. So, and for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And now someone will look at that and say, oh, so that means for every good thing, there's a bad thing. No, it means that equal and opposite in terms of magnitude means that you've gone and you've taken it out. So if I've sent you that kindness, now you have the ability to take that kindness and go elsewhere with it. And so that's what I was hoping would happen when we did this, that, that action would have a reaction. I never thought it would get to the point that it has. I never thought that it would grow to this magnitude, that I would be here 10 years later saying, my gosh, we've given out 750,000 of these cards and counting. But it's the perfect realization of that idiom, that actions have reactions and they speak louder than words. That's why Mr. Kelly came, it struck me. He didn't say, I'm sorry. It was, what can I do to help? and that makes all the difference.
I love that. And by the way,
some questions from the audience.
And by the way,
on the back channel.
One last thing, a smile can change somebody's day, change somebody's life.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get into the whole story, but the man who ultimately shot Ronald Reagan was on 2 different occasions was going to go shoot Ronald Reagan, stopped at a McDonald's, got a Happy Meal, oddly enough. And the woman behind the counter was so kind to him that, when he left, he was perplexed. He's like, because nobody ever smiled at him. Nobody gave him any attention. He's like, this woman just smiled. So he canceled his plans to go shoot Reagan. He's like, yeah, but this is a one-off because she's being paid to be nice to me. So about a week later, he was walking and he was thinking, okay, I'm going to plan it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go shoot Reagan, and I'm going to go do this tomorrow or that day. And he's planning, he's thinking about it, walks past the same woman on the bridge. She smiles at him again. He's like, what the heck? She's not working. She smiled at me. She was kind to me. And again, he didn't do it. Now, a couple of weeks later, he went on and did it anyway. And obviously, fortunately, it was a failed attempt. But this, by the way, is a story that he shared from prison. And again, your smile can change the world for one person, could really, imagine, save someone else's life. So keep smiling, my friends.
Let's go ahead and open it up to the stage. Would anybody like to chime in and pour some love and some flowers?
Amelia, this is Tarico. I just
Hello,
want to say,
brother.
hello. Rich, man, my heart is full this morning because you value not only Reese's life, but you valued the process of what one movement, right? You and your daughters to sit at that table and to decide to take action, to activate, to start this chain reaction. That took a lot of courage. That took a lot of resilience for you guys to decide we're going to take this and we're going to use it. And I just want to honor you as a former educator myself and the movement that you're now taking that into the schools in a time where our young people need to understand the value of respect. What person to go out and teach that better than you? So I just celebrate you and want to honor you in the space. And thank you so much for the work you're doing from another educator.
Well, thank you. And as an educator, I mean, a lot of what, honestly, most of what I do here comes from that educational space and knowing what I saw as a teacher myself, seeing it in my kids. And I used to tell my students perspective is actually a scientific thing, frame of reference. And I would tell my students all the time when I would teach it that there's only 2 ways you can get perspective, is that you experience something that makes you see it in a different way, or someone shares with you a different way of looking at things that enables you to see it in a way you never have before. And that was really what spurred me to say, I'm going to go to schools and do this, because I got to see through, obviously something I wouldn't want to happen to other people. I got to see a different side of life that I want to be able to share with them, at least in some way, so that they realize that that little act of kindness does make a difference. Because, if you don't think something is going to do anything, then you're not going to do it. If you don't think that your kindness matters, then it doesn't. So having the knowledge and the proof that, yes, that little act of kindness can make a tremendous difference, not just a little difference, then that's what I want to do. I want to get out there and prove it to them, not just tell them, not just teach it to them. I want them to see it and live it and experience it.
I love
Hi,
it. Other
Rich.
questions for stage?
Yes, this is Sally. Hi, babe. Hi, Rich. First of all, thank you so much. That's the first time I've heard your story, and I was putting my makeup on in the bathroom, crying like a baby, because what an incredible, just what happened. I'm so sorry. I know it's been a long time, but I know that never ends, that pain. But I love what you guys are doing. I love what your kids are doing, and I wanted to just express, first of all, my gratefulness for what you're doing, what your kids are doing, but also I do this program with these girls out here in LA in the schools, and I think what I want to do is order some of your cards and start this sort of domino effect out here in LA with the girls that I'm mentoring. There's like 60 girls at the high school that I'm mentoring right now, because that's one of the things that I think we're missing is, we're teaching them about mindset and all of that, but the kindness aspect is so important, of each one reach one kind of thing. So
right.
I would love to somehow partner with you out here in LA at the LAUSD district, and maybe even have you come out at some point. But I love what you're doing, and you're going to continue doing it for the rest of your life. And I love that you're on this earth with your kids doing this. So thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to be out in LA in 2 weeks. I'm speaking in a school in Irvine.
Yes. Wait,
yeah.
when are you going to be in LA? What date?
The 18th to the 21st.
I'm going to connect with you.
Okay.
That's perfect.
I would love to connect. And I do want to add, I know everyone said my daughters and me. My wife is equally involved and was equally a part of that conversation. So I don't want it to be like I haven't included her.
Yay, wife.
So my wife Samantha is my absolute rock, and she is
Team wifey.
she is everything. So she
we were just talking about power couples in the earlier hour.
yeah, she is my power. So
Well, and so often,
Yep.
And so often the couples don't survive this kind of loss.
over 80%, over 80% of parents have lost their children.
You've grown, from what I understand, grown closer and stronger as a unit, and you've had another child.
Yes. Yeah, we had our daughter Melina about 2 years after Reese had passed. She's our rainbow.
Did you introduce Reese to her when she got old enough?
You know, that's a great question. I think he was always a part of her. So we always talked about him. I wrote a children's book. She knew his story. We have pictures of him everywhere. We always talked about him. It was a conscious decision by my wife and I to let her know that her brother existed, that he was a real person, that, and that he's a part of our family. So, and it's weird. She's 7 now. And at first it was something she didn't quite wrap her head around. Like, I have a brother. I don't have a brother. And it's interesting to see as her cognitive ability has expanded, how she is now, that's my brother Reese. And she knows what daddy does. And, it's interesting because I feel like she's got the best of all of it, because she doesn't have any of the baggage that my older daughters do. To her, Reese is just a kind of like this pillar of light, and there's none of that negativity. I think that, my daughter's experience, it wasn't ripped away from her, and he was from them. So it's really interesting to contrast her experience through all this versus my older daughters.
That's a great way of looking at that, right? They both have value differently. I think that's just beautiful. Who else would like to chime in from the stage?
Hi, this is Nune. Rich, as a fellow educator and parent, I just thank you. I'm so grateful that I was in the room to hear your story. Welcome to Clubhouse.
Thank you.
If there's anything we can do to support you, I'm not often in this room, but when I am, I feel like my heart expands. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I have an envelope addressed to you right now. And thank you for sharing your story. And I think a lot of us who go into education initially, we want to foster and have children beyond our doors. And thank you for taking on the children of the world. And just Reese, and we're all saying his name, and it just flows off our tongue so fluidly. And just thank you for seeing what you saw in your experiences and bringing it to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Who's next?
I would chime in. It's Norman, but I'm not too sure what the whole topic is. I just came back on. You want to light me into it?
Bad timing, Norman. Bad timing.
Yeah, let anybody else like to chime in on.
Sorry, guys.
That's okay. No worries, Norman. We love you.
Okay.
On today's interview, how it touched you, how it moved you. Any comments?
Well, I will just quickly say I just admire.
I think you're in the black hole.
Mary Lynn, Rich, just listen.
Mary Lynn, we can't hear you.
Yeah, you're in the matrix.
You're in the matrix.
Oh, Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I was just saying I'm working and listening, and Rich, I'm just, you know, your story.
You're in the Matrix again. Oh no, she's in the Matrix.
Buddy, and
It's okay. I want to let everybody know that's watching us right
as a
now.
mom
We
with
are
a
on
son, like,
Restream. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. So for you that are watching online, we are taking questions from Clubhouse. Okay, the audio platform. So if you'd like to ask a question, you need to get with Breakfast with Champions. Come on in here and ask your question. But yeah, Marilyn, sorry, you were in the Matrix.
Can I ask Rich a question because I'm the commercial guy? Rich,
absolutely.
How can we
Yeah.
help you? You tell us how we can help you.
Well, I mean, I think you're seeing it right now. So the way you help is to pass it along, right? So to let others know. And, you know, for me, the lifeblood of what we do is getting in front of kids, getting in front of schools. That's really my calling. That's really where, you know, when people ask me, I mean, I'm running the whole foundation basically, but that's the last thing I want to do. I want to, the teacher in me is still there, and my curriculum has changed. You know, I'm no longer teaching Newton's laws, but I am teaching, you know, the kind of the laws of life, and that's what I want to be able to do. And so, and I think I'm almost a victim of the fact that because I was a teacher, we have a K-2 program that I do that's based on my children's book. That these kids learn that Reese is a little character who's a little farmer who discovers that kindness is like the seeds he grows on his farms, that they don't grow unless you do the things to cultivate them. And if you do, they grow and spread. And then I have a program for grades 3 through 5, which I do tell my own story, but I just say that Reese had an accident and I talk about it from that context. And I do middle school and high school. And, you know, to me, each age group, there's different reasons why it's important, but the message is always the same. And that's really what I want to be able to do, is to get into schools, to be able to talk to these kids, because they need to hear this message. They need to know that they can make a difference, because if you have that apathy in life, then that apathy just grows into more apathy. And to me, that's the scariest thing that we have in our lives is apathy. You know, I love that quote from Elie Wiesel: the opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy.
Hey, so I got a question real quick for the audience, because I'm all about networking, right? I'm all about networking and connecting the dots. So he just said, you know, if you got connections to schools and universities and stuff like that, he wants to speak, get the message out there. So, hey, listen, if you've got any connections, why don't you unmute right now? And let's see if we can make something happen live right here in Clubhouse.
Hey, Rich, it's Nune again. I have come out of retirement. I teach online for a company that has a parent company in Oklahoma with over 50,000 online learners, independent study. I would love to facilitate even if it's not in my power, I will facilitate you to reach your goals by connecting you. So I've back messaged you, and I'm happy to serve. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And we can also donate, correct? Because you are a foundation, and those cards don't print themselves, and they don't mail themselves.
We are a registered 501c3. We actually, it's not just the kindness cards. I mean, the foundation itself, we do a toy drive here on Long Island every year. We've collected over 35,000 toys for kids on Long Island. We have a program called Pay It Foodward, where we provide meals and sundries for families that are going through a difficult time like we did. We do scholarships for high school students who've demonstrated a commitment to their community and kindness. I also do a water safety program. So that's the other thing I do. I teach water safety to the at-risk group, which is children under 5, the number one killer of kids under 5. It used to be that we used to say it was the number one accidental cause of death. It's now the number one single cause of accidental death of children is drowning.
Wow.
And it remains that to this day. And I have to get my little water safety thing in here. Sadly, over 80% of parents believe that attending to your children is all you need to do to protect them around the water. And if you know that's not true, because that breaks down. I've said if you have a kid and you've ever said, "Where's so and so," you could have been me. And every parent has uttered those words. So, I don't want to get into finger pointing because people will do that, and it happened to us and we lost our son and suddenly I'm a terrible parent. But if you've ever said those words, then your story could be mine. And that means there's other ways that we need to work about preventing drowning from happening. And there's multiple layers and people need to understand those. So we work very hard to get that message out as well. So yeah, I have lots of hats when it comes to the foundation. So that's why I say when I really get to a point, I want to get to this point where I'm just spreading the message, and I've got other people doing this stuff for us. But I'm not at that point right now. Right now, it's me doing it all. So and I love doing it, but if I had my choice, it would be to just share our message as far and wide as I could.
Hey, Rich, I got a real quick question for you. I was going to ask you, do you know much about, like, I'm sure you probably do. I've seen these videos where they're teaching like infants to float on their back. Do you know what I'm talking about?
The drowning prevention community is very tight knit. The video you're talking about, you've probably seen. I'm friends with. I know them well. That's from Live Like Jake. I know Jake's mom very well. Yes, that is Infant Self Rescue. Or actually now, no, it's Infant Swimming Resources now. They keep changing the name, but it's ISR, which is a form of swim lessons for babies. One thing to understand is babies are born having lived their entire lives in an aquatic environment. They are natural swimmers. They actually lose the ability to float in those first 6 months. So what ISR does is it actually reinforces what they already have. And they can self-rescue, or they used to say self-rescue. They don't anymore, actually, but they can buy time, which is all I needed for Reese. And Reese was scheduled for swim lessons at 2, and obviously he was 22 months old. And that's because my pediatrician told me he needs to start swimming at 2. Melina started swim lessons at 4 months, and by the time she was Reese's age, she could swim the length of a pool. Reese drowned in 18 inches of water. He could have stood up, but he had no familiarity with the water. He had, so that's why the water safety is also a huge part of what we do.
Thank you for sharing that.
It's incredible, right? It's just God bless you. I don't know what, as one parent to another, I can just say that I respect you. I love you, and your strength is impeccable. And it just really drives home the point that I don't care what anybody who's listening thinks they're going through. Get up and do something positive. Just do one small positive thing. You're strong enough to do one thing. You are. Yep. We all are. And together, that's how we rise. I want to thank you, sir, from the bottom of my heart. We have the social media show coming up right behind us. I'm trying to think. I don't see Nate, though. Who's running the social media show?
I'm here, Amilya Antonetti.
Oh, you are there? I can't find your little face. Oh, there's your little face. Hi, Mr. Nate. How are you,
Amilya,
sir?
it's time to do the readers, Amilya.
If I could just jump in one last thing, on what you just said, we can all do one thing. And here's the thing. If you are feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling sad, unmotivated, the best cure for that is to go out and lose yourself in the service of others. Because when you do something for someone else, you actually improve your own mood. You get the endorphins and the dopamine hit and all that stuff hitting you. So it's actually good for you, good for your health. Get out there, do something good for somebody today. Be kind. Always be kind. And when you share that kindness, it's infectious, right? Spread that thing like a virus.
Love it. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody who came in and support the Genius Hour. I love you guys so much. I appreciate it so much. Give it a like. Give it a follow. Please follow us over on social media and give us a little comment. It helps all of us feel and fill our hearts up very much. Mr. Nate, I am passing the baton to you, my beautiful brother.
Thank you, Amilya Antonetti.
Thank you, guys.
Genius P family. Thank you for introducing us to Rich. What a powerful, message. And just to cultivate kindness, be kind. I was checking out the website and checking out everything you guys are doing over there, Rich. So We'll leave that link up for another a couple minutes, guys. I encourage you to click that link if you just jumped in for the social media show and you didn't get a chance to hear Rich's, a mission and purpose that he's doing over at the Respect Life Foundation. I see what you did there. The Respect Life Foundation. So click that link, check it out. Amilya, thank you for introducing us, and thank you for another fabulous